Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone. It's Season 3, Episode 8. It's called It's a Good Life. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. This is a very famous episode about a child who has the power to basically do anything he wants. He can make people disappear, he can transform them into other things, he has telepathy, he can create TV that will broadcast in front of them even though there's nothing being broadcast. He can do anything he wants. He's actually already kind of separated the town he lives in from the rest of the world. In fact, probably the first thing I note about this episode, before we get into the nitty gritty of, like, you know, what it is this is probably the most in-depth opening, like, narration Rod Serling's ever done, where not only does he explain a lot of the context, as he does sometimes, because sometimes it's a very vague couple of lines, he tells it in such a way where he really goes in depth and explains a bunch of characters, and then goes, and he keeps referring to the monster. And then at the very end, oh, there's one thing I forgot to mention. The monster himself. And then it does a reveal. It's a child. Here he is. And I was like, it really, I think more than I've ever seen in this show, used the opening narration as part of the story, as opposed to just a bit of setup. So, yeah, it had its own little twist, I guess, is what I'm saying, which I thought was impressive. But, well, so what did you think then of It's a Good Life?
Yeah, it's great. This is the most nightmare of all episodes that we've seen so far. I really, really love the setup from Rod. Just the opening line of him setting up, like, the town is separated from the rest of the world. We don't know if the boy has created, like, this his own world. Like, did the other areas just disappear, or did the whole town disappear and it's just floating out in space somewhere? Like, it's this is a really terrific episode of Twilight Zone.
It is. It's maybe it doesn't feel like it on the surface, but it's actually a very dark episode. There's a lot of insinuations from things that are said about what he's done to other people, including at least one person being set on fire.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that they could show.
Yes.
But I think that is good for this episode, because you have a lot of imagination. And when the kid does mention, like, that's why I made him into fire or something, like, whoa.
Yeah, there's elements of that. There's elements of, like, you know, making children disappear. And he's like, why is there no kids coming to play with them? Because parents don't typically like it when you murder their kids. That's why they don't come over.
Well, yeah, he keeps saying that they send him into the cornfield, but what does that mean? Like, we see that he can transform people into things. So are there just, like, heads of people in the cornfield that are part man, part corn?
Yeah, or is it more of like a metaphor? Like, you know when you tell a kid that their pets went to a farm in the sky, kind of thing?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like that, where it's just, oh, send them to the afterlife where they don't have to feel pain anymore, kind of thing.
Right. It could be. I did think about that too. I'm like, maybe the cornfield is just like, yeah, his version of the afterlife of death.
The sad part of that, though, is that is the optimistic interpretation of it. That's the happier version, where, okay, at least they get some peace. Whereas, or,
like, if it's just like, it is just they're monsters in the cornfield, but, you know, the cornfield is not accessible from the rest of the villagers, so out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, one of the things that, because I remembered this episode when I was watching The Boys, because there's a character in The Boys who's essentially an evil version of Superman. He's called Homelander. And the whole idea of the character is like, okay, this is what Superman would be like if, instead of being raised by a good, you know, pair of people, like, you know, good parents on a farm, idyllic life, who taught him right from wrong and taught him love and compassion and empathy and all these things, it was someone who was raised by a cynical prick in a lab, and he's basically just grown up thinking he can do whatever he wants because he has all this power. And whenever he's in a situation where he's in a room and people, like, are upsetting him, everyone starts to get very tense, because he can literally just kill anyone he wants and no one can do anything about it because he's got the powers of Superman, right? And this, I remember thinking about this episode when I was watching, you know, season 1 of The Boys, because it's very much that idea of, like, even though Homelander's a fully grown man, part of the problems with his character is that emotionally he's actually a bit of an adolescent, where if he doesn't get his way, you know, and some of the things he wants are more grown up. He does, like, force people into sexual situations. He does do really extreme, like, you know, adult grotesque stuff. But the problem is that he still thinks about these things as a young boy. He still thinks about these things of, I want this thing, you will do this thing, or I will throw you into the sun because I can. And this is kind of like what I thought, I was thinking of, because that's what this is. It's this kid who thinks like a child and doesn't necessarily see anything wrong with like murdering people or making them disappear just because they do something he doesn't like. Which only reinforces his bad habits and then does kind of turn him into an evil little shit, in the sense that he basically, like, if you sing in front of him, he doesn't like singing, so he was like, oh, yeah, gone, or whatever. I mean, obviously,
I said I had declared no singing.
Yeah, because the first half of the episode, obviously a lot of it's the Rod setup, and then the rest of it is kind of, it's like the delivery boy comes by to drop off the groceries, and it really sets up this idea that no matter what he's doing, you have to tell him that he's doing a good thing.
Yeah, he's like making animals like out of things. Like he made a 3-headed gopher, which we only see the tail of, but that's okay. And then the guy's like, well, that's just great. Like, good for you making that horrible monstrosity that shouldn't exist. And it also sets up that wherever they are, they have very limited supplies. Because the guy's like, I brought tomato soup, but it turns out we still have 2 cans left. So this kid is not manifesting anything that they need, like food, or they still have to grow crops, we find out. Otherwise, they may not survive.
At least, yeah, because I was getting, because one of the scenes in the first half is that the dad is getting dressed, and the boy comes upstairs, and he's being nice to the kid as he does, and he starts asking him a question. The kid, and when the kid says that, oh, no kids came over today to play with me, the dad tries to, as nicely as he can, make the logical point is that if you keep making people disappear, eventually there'll be no one left. Like, that's why there's no kids left.
Remember when you did that, and that was a good thing?
And that was a good thing, but maybe it'd be a better thing if you brought them back, or if you...
I don't know if he has that ability. Yeah. Like, they've never asked for it,
for that,
so who knows? But it's also the scene where you find out that there used to be pigs on the farm, and he turned all the pigs into monsters, so now they have no pigs. And also, like, he's like, oh, I was in the barn playing with the cow, and the dad's like, that's just wonderful. Did you do anything to the cow? Like, did you screw up another thing for us?
Yeah, and he makes the dog disappear. Again, it's off camera. You don't get to see, it's just we hear the barking.
And the kid can also read minds. So he knows that if you're thinking a bad thought, so you constantly have to say nice things to him so that maybe you can convince yourself that you really believe it.
Yeah, one of the things is, because the second half of the episode is this surprise party on TV night where he makes them all watch. I had forgotten that this also had some dinosaur action, like the plane one. I was like, oh, we got another episode with dinosaur action on the TV show.
Yeah.
And all it is two
this
dinosaurs
is taken
fighting.
from a Mystery Science Theater movie, actually, from Lost Continent. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't realize. I actually,
it's a real movie.
Okay, that's cool. And one of the things here is that we have this character. The second half focuses on this guy who gets agitated that he can't play his new vinyl that his wife got him for his birthday, on his birthday, because little whatever his name is, the child doesn't like
singing.
Yeah, Anthony, and basically he's getting more drunk and more agitated, and everyone's getting really tense because he keeps saying things and he keeps like implying things, and he starts saying stuff. And at one point he yells out like, Willie's focused on me. Willie's like thinking about killing me. Someone just end this. Someone just like sneak up behind him and do it. And I almost wish this episode was twice as long, and that the plot was genuinely about them without like it's hiding it as best they can without thinking about it in front of him. Somehow like planning to kill him, because it's the only way they're ever going to.
I mean, this episode is redone. I don't know if it's redone in the other series, but it's redone in the Twilight Zone movie, and it is a bit longer. I don't know if it's better. I do remember it stuck with me because you get a lot more of the visuals of what the kid's able to do. And it is that like that 80s,
sure, yeah. Grotesque body horror.
Yeah, body horror stuff. So that's pretty fun. And as a kid watching that, that really stuck with me. But I mean, this episode might be just as good, if not better. It's been a while since I've watched the Twilight Zone movie.
Honestly, not seeing stuff might even be to its benefit, because the imagination makes it feel so creepy. I think the gopher thing is the one that sticks out to me, is feeling like kind of goofy, because it just kind of feels fake that he's holding this tail, and it's implied that there's more. And whereas the other stuff that he mentions, when he just mentions someone on fire, someone becoming a scarecrow, or someone, Like, all
Yeah.
these things, like, conjure up these images. And when we see what he does to this guy in the second half of the episode, where eventually we see the shadow of him turning into a Jack-in-the-Box, and there's just that one very quick shot, a really weird, like, otherworldly shot of, like, the real head on a spring going back. And I say real head because for the quick second that I saw it, it looked real, but
Yeah, I think it's just him.
yeah, it's just the head with, like, like some sort of...
It's the actor just, like, moving around with his straight face
Yeah.
and the hat that he has on when he's a Jack-in-the-Box.
Yeah, but it's really creepy and surreal, and everyone's just kind of... And the episode just kind of ends there. If there's anything you can critique about this episode, is that there's not really an ending. Rod just starts talking like, yeah, they're screwed. Yeah, well, that's the Twilight Zone this week.
Well, the kid makes it snow
That's true.
outside, and they're like, that's going to ruin the crops, but we can't say anything. You know what? You know what this makes me think of, though? Well, two things. I have a friend, or a couple friend, that they have a kid that they never say no to. So I think that is part of the inspiration for this for this story or episode. This might have been a story before, like a short story or something before. It was an episode for Twilight Zone. I'm not sure, but you know, a kid that you can't say no to, and then who's really running the show, you know. But also, this reminds me of leaders that you can't say no to either. Like it's very Chernobyl, Soviet Union. Like, we can never say anything bad. Like, we can't say anything bad because they have the power to make us disappear. Or like North Korea reminds me of that, and unfortunately, it reminds me a little bit of Trump and the people that surround him and tell him he's doing a great thing.
That's what I was going to say. Is that, I mean, obviously the literal thing there about making people disappear relates to some of these other places, but look at what the kid does in this episode. Look at what he's done to the world. Him running the show has ruined like agricultural, systems. It's ruined the power systems. It's ruined everyone's lives. Everyone's feeling scared. They're running low on supplies. Like, he's essentially ruined the world. So it was actually an episode.
If the world even is around still.
Yeah. So there's an episode of the newer Twilight Zone which wasn't very good, but the premise was that there was a kid who was president, and it was really in your face, and it was obvious what it was doing. But I do actually think this makes a lot of the same points in a much more subtle way of, like, there's a reason why kids can't be in charge. There's a reason why there has to be experienced adults running the show, because if not, then they'd make decisions that are based on nothing but their own feelings, which is not what a leader's supposed to do. In any way, shape, or form. So I think there's a lot of stuff baked into this episode. And admittedly, I think the examples you brought up are more prevalent because it was made at the time when that was maybe more on their minds, and that actual metaphor for some of these other places, for the Soviet Union, was probably actually considered. It was probably something when they were writing the episode, when Rod was writing the script for this, he was probably thinking about that in a little bit. That's what it's kind of standing in for.
This is very much Kim Jong-un, also. Just a child who's a supreme leader and has grown up like being told that he's the greatest, and it surrounds himself with people who tells him that, and things are not going great in North Korea for people who have escaped anyway. They have said that, and but they continue to worship him because they have to.
Yeah, well, the key point we're making here is that part of growing up means learning empathy, which is a big thing that this kid does not have, but also discipline, also that he can't always have his way. These are the important things that it's actually teaching. So this is just a kind of an extreme, absurd turn to a living example of, it's not just that the kid gets whatever he wants, is that he has the superpower to do literally anything he wants. And when you give a kid that power, all you're going to have is disaster. Arguably, even if you give an adult that power, it's going to lead in disaster, to be honest. It'd be amazing how quickly some of us turn into children once we have that much power. But that's ultimately what the episode is doing, and it's the importance of just a lot of basic life lessons and just how important they are that maybe are ignored or maybe are underlooked. And as someone who was an only child, as someone who was fairly spoiled, like, I do genuinely notice things that I'm not as good at because I never had to put up with siblings, and I don't want to
share.
Yeah, and I don't want to put up with siblings. Like the thought, like it's one of those things where you can't go back now. Like, I grew up that way. My mind's the way it is. The thought of having to have a sibling is like.
I'm a middle child.
Yeah. So there's definitely some things I notice in life where as a spoiled only child, I'm just used to certain things in a different way. And I'm a reasonable enough person. Like, I acknowledge this. I you know, like, see the way I am, and I am a functional member of society, regardless of this. I didn't set anyone on fire. I'll put that out there right now.
Good.
You know, take that for what it's worth. Haven't killed any dogs, or other children for that matter, when I was a kid. Yeah, didn't turn any pigs into monsters. Although, give me a chemistry set and some syringes, maybe I'll give it a go. But
I thought you said you had empathy.
I do have empathy. It was a joke. It was a joke. No, I mean, the episode, despite all these things we're talking about and what it represents and what it's saying, is that I think fundamentally the reason why it's good is just because of how terrifying it actually is. Like, the actual tension.
Yeah. I think all the acting is really great. Like, just, I know they said it's a hot day, so everybody's already kind of sweating, but just the nervousness of, like, the guy playing the piano, and then the kid sits next to him. He's like, "What do you want me to play?" Just keep playing. Like, he's afraid. He keeps messing up because stuff is going on around him, and he's distracted, and he's so paranoid about playing the wrong thing and something bad happening to him. Or, like, the way the parents act around him, like, it's such a good performance from, like, everybody.
Yeah, honestly, if I have a critique, because I know I jokingly said if I have a critique the ending not having an ending, really, that's not actually a critique. I'm sort of saying that as an objective, like, something you might say about something else. I think in this case it actually works really well, that they're screwed and there's no hope. The only minor critique I would even give this episode is that I do think whenever they say, "Oh, it's a good thing you did that," it did start to grate on me that they said it the exact same way every time. I almost wish that there was a bit more variance in how they tried to tell him that he was doing the good thing. Mainly just because I feel like even a kid would start to see through the bullshit of them just saying it the same way every time. Like, don't you patronize me, you shit.
I don't know. Like, the kid's pretty young, so
I guess,
maybe as he gets older. I don't know. Maybe. But I also think that Billy Mummy is exceptionally terrifying in this too, as just the innocent kid. I mean, I think it's just directed so well, and that even a child performer just pointing with a mad face is terrifying because you know the consequences.
It's very effective. Like I say, minor critique. It's an excellent episode. Like, this is. In the scheme of things, even from the start, the way Rod introduces the episode, it already feels kind of special because of how much gravitas it gives everything, and the world that it sets up. This intro
is also used in the Hollywood Tower of Terror, which in California Disney Park, it used to be a Twilight Zone themed ride, but now it's a Guardians of the Galaxy themed one. And honestly, I don't know which one I like more, but regardless, like, when you enter the ride, it starts off with this intro that's been altered. So, like, today's introduction is going to be a little bit different. And he goes into, like the map or whatever of the town. And so the ride also begins with that video, but it's been altered to fit the Hollywood Tower of Terror. Which you can still get to the Twilight Zone one if you go to Disney World, but not right now.
No, it's a great episode. It's really hard to find much fault. The atmosphere of the desolate town and all these people who are forced to not even think independently, which I guess is another point, is that if you go back to the example of the Soviet Union, or places where there's people in charge, dictators and things like that, this idea that they're trying to control how you think, and that's another element here that's kind of prevalent. So yeah, it's a good life. Rod, of course, does pop up at the end. No,
not for you. None on mine.
Well, he did for me, and he was
yes,
and he was very excited to tell us about a German SS captain who is, like, the focus of next week's episode. It's called Death's Head Revisited. This is the description in IMDb. A former German SS captain returns to Dachau, if I'm saying that right, I don't know what that is. The Dachau concentration camp. I assume if you're someone who's, like, familiar with the history here, you may know that better than I do.
I know Auschwitz.
Yeah. Anyway, so he returns to the concentration camp and begins reminiscing on the power he enjoyed there. until he finds himself on trial by those who died at his hands. So this is a I don't know if it's vengeful spirits is maybe the right term, but I'm getting kind of that vibe from it.
I want to say that I think this one was also remade. I think there's like an 80s version or the 2000s version where they did this one again. But I don't know. I'm not really familiar with those ones. But this one, I can kind of picture it, but in color.
Sure. I think it's interesting that we're getting a protagonist who is this villainous. Like, we're getting a protagonist here who is the bad.
There was that submarine episode that's kind of similar, right? Where he's on like a ship, a cruise ship, and he knows that there's going to be a missile coming towards the ship anytime soon and then the big reveal is that this was season 1.
Yeah, well, that's different though, because that was the twist, is that he was one of the villains. Like, he was from the other ship.
Yeah, he was previously the captain on the other ship.
Yeah. Whereas this, it sounds like it from the get-go, we're going to know who this guy is, and, the fact that and not even just that, the fact that he's, like, happily reminiscing over what he did at his time at the concentration camp, like, already sets him up as one of the most villainous lead characters we've ever had on this show. So
bad things are going to happen to him, and we're going to enjoy it. Yeah,
so I'm kind of excited to see, like, how they tackle an episode like this and how dark it actually gets. So we'll see. That's Death's Head Revisited coming next time. So yeah, that's this episode of the Twilight Zone. So thank you very much for joining us. You can, of course, like and subscribe. Liking is super important on YouTube. It is the way that our reviews and all the things we do spread to other people on the website. So please do hit the like button. You can, of course, get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. And oh my, what did you just do?
Skype gave me an option to do a thumbs up, so I took it. I wasn't sure what would happen. That was an experiment, but I'm glad I did while we were recording.
Tell them about Patreon.
If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/mildfuzztv. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of other shows we do, including The Ace, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, which is our science fiction movie review show. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these Twilight Zone reviews 1 week early. So please check that out and watch episodes earlier than everyone else on YouTube. Thank you.
I don't know how to follow that up.
What?
Oh,
I hit the wrong one.
Oh, we got a heart first though. You see that? Tara hearts is all.
That was I love the likes.
Oh, you're going to abuse the shit out of that now.
I will never. That's the only time I'll ever do that.
Okay, all right, yeah. She says after doing it 3 times in a row.
Just to piss you off.
All right, that's us, guys. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.